All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back. This is Strange Planet, and in this episode, we're going to be discussing all the recent Republican candidates that just announced their presidential run. Some of those names include Nikki Haley and Tim Scott, Nikki Haley being the former governor of South Carolina, and Tim Scott being a U.S. Senator from South Carolina, for those that don't know. And now you can add former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, and former vice president under the Trump era, Mike Pence. You know, the same Mike Pence that the Trump mob wanted to hang during the January 6th insurrection. And I must say, I find all of this not surprising nor appealing in any way. So what do you guys think about this?
Chris Christie and Mike Pence both threw their hat in the ring for president. As most of you know, Mike Pence was our vice president who did the honorable thing. I guess there's a low bar for honorability in the Republican Party and specifically in the Trump administration, but you have to give him credit. When Trump put the pressure on him as president of the United States to overturn an election and literally sent a mob to overrun the Capitol, chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," he stood firm and, upheld the voting results of the election. And now he wants to be president of the United States. That was a nice job he did on January 6th. However, when it came to condemning Trump for his actions or, standing up for your principles, when, asked about what would you criticize about Trump, listen, you failed. Only now, like years later, like how many years later? Like fucking, 2 years later? Are you saying,
3?
Yeah, almost 3 years later, are you saying like, Trump may not have been the best president? Sorry, like the time to answer the call was on January 6th, which you did. You upheld the election. But when it came time to, say, testify or to speak out against what Trump did, even after you left the vice presidency, after the administration, you just stayed quiet, stayed silent, didn't say anything. And, that was one of the most dangerous situations our country has ever faced in terms of having our government overthrown. And you have nothing to comment on that. That's not a leader. That's not a leader. I'm sorry.
No.
There's also Chris Christie, who famously he was a huge Trump supporter. After they went at it in the debates, I think, was it back in the 2016 election? Yeah, like they kissed and made up, but unfortunately, Chris Christie never made it into Trump's administration. There were rumors that he wanted to become attorney general. I'm pretty sure he made it very clear that he wanted to become attorney general, but that didn't happen because Chris Christie had a little thing called Bridgegate going on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was... he had a history of corruption. Being from New Jersey, that's like not that unique, we'll say.
Yeah, right.
For a New Jersey politician to be a little bit corrupt. So if it was too corrupt for the Trump administration, I'm sorry, you don't belong in the White House.
Not at all. And I still find the funniest thing is you look at, all the candidates pretty much from 2016's election, and now you look at what's going on in 2020. And then you look at now and you realize there really isn't any new blood. It's basically like this is the best they got.
Oh, no. There's Nikki Haley, who I guess was also
really.
Yeah, I mean she didn't run before.
Well, no, she didn't, but that's not really raising the bar. Like you know what I mean? Like it's maybe a little better, but
she's a governor. She was a Secretary of State. She has experience, but the wrong experience, in my opinion. And she sat there and yes man for Trump. I'm sorry, but any association you have with the Trump administration is like, that should be a red flag for electability. Like, I'm sorry,
Right.
but if you
Yeah.
thought Trump at any point in time, especially by joining his administration, should be a president, like, no, I'm sorry. Like, you disqualify yourself, at least in my opinion, from holding public office, much less the most important public office, in the country. Tim Scott is new. He's a senator from South Carolina. He definitely is a Trump apologist as well. Not really excited about him either.
Right.
But let's be real. So far, this contest is between DeSantis and Trump. Trump is by far and away the leader in the polls. He owns the Christian evangelicals, which is surprising given that Mike Pence is like,
Christian Mike Pence.
he's a super Christian. I guess Tim Scott is a minister, but he's also black, so I'm sure that doesn't really go over well in the Republican Party. They entertained Herman Cain for a little bit, but by the way, does anyone realize that Herman Cain got killed by Trump's lies about the COVID?
No, they don't know that.
He
Yeah,
went
they don't know that.
he went to a Trump rally, did not wear a mask, because that would be pussy of him to wear a mask,
right.
and then don't wear a mask, even though Trump and his administration were running around with spreading COVID. And guess who caught it? Herman Cain. Guess who died of it? Herman Cain. Yeah, he died for Trump's COVID stupidity.
Right. Pretty much. That's what I meant though before about like new candidates, because like all these candidates that are coming up still like either like suckle at the Trump teat still, or like they're not just Republicans, they're Trumplicans. You know what I mean? Like, could we pull them away and come back to earth and come back to reality? Because like this is cultish.
Well, look, Trump as president was the leader of the Republican Party, and so that holds a lot of power, and you have to kind of back your party leader unless you have integrity and speak out against them for the wrong shit that they do. I'm sorry, but because you're running against him now for president and now you want to speak out against him, that's not the right time. I think of anyone, and I hate saying this because I definitely don't fucking like the guy, but DeSantis, I guess maybe he was a Trump fan, or he supported Trump, but he was really siloed off in Florida, and hasn't until very recently got involved in national politics. And so I think if people are looking for an anti-Trump candidate, which they're not, they should go look to Ron DeSantis maybe. There's a lot of other reasons why I do not like Ron DeSantis. He's dangerous and he thinks people are stupid. He's a Harvard-educated lawyer, but he acts like he doesn't know anything in order to win over people who are worried about the East Coast elites, and he plays to that whole like being educated is bad thing that Republicans seem to pride themselves on. And so, I think and also he plays up to the culture wars, perhaps even more so than Trump. Like, how the fuck are you in a feud with fucking Disney? I mean, like, that makes no fucking sense. He also is a human trafficker. He rounded up immigrants in Florida and sent them to Martha's Vineyard. Of all places. Right. Like, and now he's, being actually looked at for potential charges of like human trafficking. So like, there's a lot of things to dislike about DeSantis. Whatever you think of Trumpism, like he wasn't really in Trump's like circle of influence. So like Tim Scott was. Scott sucked up to Trump. He defended Trump. Chris Christie was. He sucked up to Trump. He defended Trump. Mike Pence, he was his fucking vice president, and he sucked up and kissed his ass the whole time, even though arguably Trump had tried to have him killed.
Right.
Nikki Haley, same thing. Like, work for Trump. Trump is amazing. He's a great guy. Loves working for him. But now I'm running against him, so I might say some bad shit about him. I mean, like, you're right that the circle of Trump influence, there's a lot of people in there that are, potentially running against him. But I think that it's going to be an interesting race between DeSantis and Trump. And right now, Trump is by far and ahead the leader. Things change. People get tired of shit. You never know. But
yeah, it can be swayed any day, really. That's a good point.
Sadly, I think this all boils down to what the voters are going to do.
Yeah, I mean, they're Republican voters, so, I mean, who knows what the fuck they like. I sure
right?
don't.
But the
They
weird
like
thing,
Trump.
too, is like, I don't, just judging by what we just said now, even, I don't really feel like any of these candidates, though, are like going to push this country in the direction it needs to go. You know what I mean? I don't look at any of those and be like, you know what? That's going to be a good idea. She should be, like Nikki Haley could be it. Or I look at Chris Christie and be like, he could be it. No, I don't see it in any of them. I'm going to be honest. I really don't. I don't think any of them are really anything special. They all have their own, for some reason, love for Trump. But, when debates and things rise, I'm sure, like you said, they might say some things that he's not going to like. But, like, it's just bottom line. There's nothing. It's not new. It's just I feel like it's another repetitious cycle again. But like I just don't see any of them being like plausible candidates for this. Like I don't see it. For example, say Biden were to lose, I don't have a lot of confidence in any of these guys filling the gap. You know what I mean?
Is our best for the Democratic one? Is our best really Joe Biden?
Well, considering he's already the president, obviously he's gonna go for re-election and try to get a second term, which I think he should, and I think that's probably the safest bet, to be honest, from the award-winning candidates we're talking about here.
Here's the thing, though: is he strong enough to beat Trump? He beat Trump
the first
last time.
Yeah, he was
the
the first time,
but by how much? You know what I'm saying? These guys now, since they've had the House or whatever, they've had the opportunity to jury-rig their areas again, and who knows if we're going to be able to really pull out another victory. Because if Trump does end up running again, he's going to do the whole time, oh, it's all rigged. It's these voting machines and that voting machines, and if he has enough people in position, he could win.
I don't know if that's going to work again, though. I mean, this country is a little dumb when it comes to realities and stuff, but like, I don't know if he's gonna lean on the same shit he leaned on then. I don't see that working. You know what I mean? Like, I at least to a common sense person, I don't like. You know what I mean? If he's gonna keep touting fraud and this, that, and the third, and bringing up all the same shit he's been touting over the past 3 years, that's not. I feel like that's not going to help his case. You know what I mean? But what I was saying before was like, there's no, like, I'm not really big fans of these people either, but at least they stood for something that wasn't Trump. Like people like Kasich and Romney that actually stood up against them and actually represented what I would call the Republican classic. You know what I mean? Which is the Republican Party, not the Trump Republican Party. You know what I mean? So like I'm not hearing any candidates coming up that are fitting that description. So it seems like we're either going to get Biden again or Trump or some off-breed mutant of Trump. So like that doesn't sound, I mean, I would rather just keep Biden there if that's the case. Like, you know what I mean?
Here's the thing. All the Republicans have to do is focus their malice on Biden. I mean, they're quabbling now, and that may be a distraction for when it comes to time where they actually have somebody up there, whether it's DeSantis or whether it's Trump or whether it's, God forbid, Chris Christie or anybody like that. You know what I'm saying? if they have somebody up, they're going to focus all their shit on Biden. And it's all about convincing the American people that shouldn't vote for them. You should vote for us, regardless of who it is. And it's going to come down to how many people vote. And I know this is, nothing new to you guys, obviously. It's just that it's all about the message. It has nothing to do with the people. So what message can Biden put forth that he hasn't already done so as, running the first time and being president for the last 4 years? It's, can he come up with something to topple over whoever's there? Because you're really looking at like, oh, well, some people, even on the Democratic side, may be like, well, Biden hasn't done all that much. Inflation's still shit. And, we can't do anything. They may not, realize that there's more to it than just Biden making all the decisions, because it's not really just Biden. And so when it comes down to it, it's about how many people in the Republican Party are just going to vote red flags be damned, or may just be like, huh, it's a red flag. Wave it a fucking there. Oh, look at that. Trump's a fucking criminal. Oh, I'm going to wave my red flag because it's a red flag. There are a lot of stupid people out there. How many of them are there versus people who are not stupid?
Well, see, the scary thing, or the funny thing actually, is if Biden were to win, that would possibly almost ensure Trump's ticket to prison. If you think about it, it probably would in the long term.
But even if he gets convicted and he's in jail, unless he's impeached in any way, shape, or form, which I don't even know is possible at this point, he can still run from jail. And they may look at that and be like, oh, fuck, I'll vote for Trump. Look at a criminal from jail. Ah. It's going to be scary, man, because you got to look at it and you get like, I can't believe this is fucking happening. And it's about their setup. They're literally doing things behind the scenes, and they're putting idiots up front. So we all point at the idiots and say, look at these fucking Republicans. And they're doing things behind the scenes. I can tell you right now. I mean, I just have a feeling that something's going to come up to where, oh, well, in this neighborhood and these sections of the county, fortunately, everyone voted this way. So now, like, look at Santos from our fucking state.
You talking George Santos?
George Santos. Now, he is representing New York as a Republican. What can he do here that can fuck up something for New York? God forbid New York went red. You know what I'm saying?
Well, he has nothing to do with New York except he represents a district in New York, but he debates and votes on laws at the federal level. So if he wants to help bring home bacon for New York in terms of projects, federal projects, sure. But other than that, he is a creature of Washington now. And so there's, he does more damage to the country as a whole by being there than to New York State, except by embarrassing the fuck out of us.
Right, because he shouldn't be there in the first place.
Can he gerrymander any of his districts to make it come out red to the point that it topples, or is it just like he has nothing to do with that?
So New York already got in trouble. Like, Democrats got in trouble in New York for attempted gerrymandering. How legitimate that was, I couldn't really tell you. But that was after Republicans did it, so it's very hard to, it's wrong to gerrymander, but sometimes you have to take back what the Republicans took, and so I don't know. It's a very complicated situation, but I don't want to come off sounding like a hypocrite and saying what the Democrats did was okay, but districts are already fucked up. They are drawn to have citizens that support the politicians that are, in power. There are certain districts that are drawn, like certain, even amongst Democrats or Republicans, they'll collude to get rid of certain districts because as New York they needed to eliminate 2 districts because the population relative to other states went down. And so we lost, a seat or two in, I think it was 2 seats since the last census. And so, we needed to consolidate districts. And in that consolidation, people, Congress members lose seats. And usually when Republicans draw the districts, they gerrymander. And so, and this most recent time, Democrats attempted it too, but actually when Democrats do it, apparently it doesn't work. And
Right.
that shit gets taken away. But when Republicans do it, it lasts until the next census. And they get to, elect candidates based on that gerrymandered districting.
That's what I'm talking about. They're doing this, and they're not getting. It's exactly what I was trying to point out. It's like they're not just doing it in New York. They're doing this all over the country, where they're just gerrymandering districts, and they're not getting held accountable for that. But sure, when we try to do it to offset the balance of what they're doing, because that's the only way we could really do it, we get called out for like, oh, look at you, you're doing a bad thing.
Right,
we do
right.
it
And
because that's who we are.
Right.
I don't support political gerrymandering or racial gerrymandering or any other type of gerrymandering.
Any kind, and really.
To be clear, what we're talking about is artificially drawing districts that to shape a certain demographic so that you can reliably predict the party that's going to get elected there. Districts should be competitive, or they should be naturally drawn, because if you look at some of the gerrymandered districts, they have such weird shapes and they go out of their way to draw on the map around places just to get certain populations. So let's be clear on what gerrymandering is. If you look at a southern state, right, and they'll have several areas with pockets of Black people that traditionally vote Democratic. Republicans will say, okay, we don't want them voting in these districts because they'll vote for Democrats and we'll never get elected here. So what they do is they say, okay, so we're going to give Black people a congressional representative, but since they're spread out in what would be several districts, we're going to draw the lines of this district such that, it takes some Black people from here, some Black people from there, and over here and over there. And, it ends up being like some really contrived, weird shape on the map so that you collect all the Black people and give them a congressional seat to elect. And then so white people get all the other seats. That's what they have done in the South over and over and over again.
Wow.
To consolidate power, even though Black people are a larger population in several of these southern states where there should probably be more representation in Congress, but unfortunately that doesn't happen because they consolidate these the Black vote into one or two districts in a state, and they draw boundaries that are artificial and look, really weird when you look at them on a map. And so, that's what gerrymandering is. Now you can gerrymander racially, like explicit, that's what I was talking about there in terms of in the South and the Black people, but you can also gerrymander politically, which is, where the Democrats in this state, let's try to draw a district where we collect enough Democrats from each area so that they have no chance of winning in other areas. And so that's really what gerrymandering is, if people haven't heard of that term or are unfamiliar with how it works.
Okay. Since we've established that, how can we make them accountable for rigging it in their way? It doesn't seem like there's a way to actually do that other than point fingers and stare. And since Republicans have no soul, they can just continue doing what they're doing like it's, everyday business. But when Democrats get pointed out to it, it's just like, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't mean to do that. Here, you can
Right.
do what
Right.
you do. It always feels like while the
Yeah, well,
Democrats have the right idea, they don't have the support to really, make things stick. And I'm not just saying that, Republicans are all evil. I'm just talking about the extreme at this point because that's what we're living in. We're living in the extremes. We're not living in a classic, Republican light, or, we're living into the idealistic Democrat. So we're dealing with extremes at this point, unfortunately. But it's, I mean, they can, seems like they can wiggle their way into making it look like someone like Trump, who shouldn't have the support of 50+% of the country voting wise, could end up getting 50+% and
he
becoming
didn't
president.
he didn't. He didn't get 50%.
He definitely
He didn't even get the popular vote at all.
He didn't. Yeah, that's true.
He lost the popular vote.
How much?
I don't know, but Hillary won the popular vote.
It was a couple of million, if I'm not mistaken. It was.
Yeah, it was 7 million.
Yeah, it was there was a decent enough gap there.
But because of the Electoral College.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's why he won.
It should be
right.
It shouldn't be, but that sounds like it's within 10 points. You know what I'm saying? Like 55-45. You know what I'm saying? He still had over 40% of the country.
True.
Sadly,
and that can easily spill into 50-60% if you gerrymander, certain districts enough. And you can, with what you just said, you can pretty much just count most of the southern states as red, just based on that alone. If anyone that's like flopping blue, like I remember Texas almost flopped blue last time, they're going to make sure that doesn't happen. Well, whatever the situation is, it's just like, they're going to make sure that Texas doesn't even try to go blue again.
Well, they're going to try not to. That's for sure. That's
well,
the intent.
I don't mean to flip on what Rick said earlier, but didn't DeSantis take them from Texas, not Florida, and then send them to Martha's Vineyard? Or was it from Florida? I thought it was from Texas.
I believe maybe they sent them from Texas to Florida, and then maybe he sent them from Florida to Martha's Vineyard. All I know is that DeSantis was responsible for sending immigrants, migrant
Martha's
workers
Vineyard.
to Martha's Vineyard. Like he organized the busing to transport them there and promised them work there.
Jesus.
That's one of the really things that bugs me about the whole political system is this whole gerrymandering thing, because it feels like it's a one-way street when it comes to, the political end of it.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. It's very true, because it seems like one party can do it and it's okay, and then the Democrats do it and it's not okay. So I'm like, oh, what? Like, how does that work? Like,
how can we set a standard, where like it's supposed to be this? And, you set that standard and then everything's like, well, this changed, so now we're just going to shove this over here. I mean,
right?
Can the Democrats get away with gerrymandering? Can we make it illegal to do so? Is it illegal to do so? Or is it just
Oh, yeah, it is illegal to do so. That's why the Democrats weren't allowed to do it.
Well, how come the Republicans can get away with it? I mean, or is it they do it in such a way where it doesn't seem like it's gerrymandering, but it is?
Yeah, and also, if they appoint conservative judges and, they find ways to delay and to
get around it,
to obfuscate what they do. And, by and large, they've already done this. And so they've already drawn those gerrymandered districts. Those districts are already baked in. And now, they're just, looking for new gerrymandered districts. And so, because if you look at, the percentage of Congress that gets reelected every year, it's in the high 90s. Like, members of Congress do not lose their seats because the seats are already gerrymandered. It's already districts drawn to elect Democrats or Republicans. And so it's fighting on the margins as to which newly redrawn districts are legal or not legal, when the districts that are there in the first place should be questioned because they're really arbitrarily drawn. Maybe not arbitrarily drawn, maybe that's the wrong word, but they are drawn to elect members of particular political parties. And, there's perhaps some merit to, giving certain populations like a specific representative. Like people, who, live in, the Bronx probably shouldn't have the same representative of, as people who live in upstate New York. That really wouldn't make sense. They have different interests, and as far as concerns, like they're dealing with farmland and stuff in upstate New York, and we don't really have farms in downstate New York, and so those are two very different societies in terms of economic interests, and so perhaps they should have different representatives. However, you also have, racial gerrymandering, which is complicated because you already have segregation that's already baked in from, historically, racist societal structuring. So it's very difficult to sort of draw districts, quote unquote, fairly when the circumstances on the ground are artificially created and unfair. And so that's probably a larger issue than what we have time for. But
that's our show for this week, everyone. Strange Planet will have new episodes on YouTube every Friday. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.